A lot of teachings coming through today. Um, I'm asked to speak on the subject of free will again, and some practical applications in our daily lives. Okay, yes, free speech, right? Freedom of speech. As I hear in the world, there are great efforts, and I have witnessed this myself, efforts to I don't want to say not allow, but yes, to discourage people from speaking out, to speak their mind, to say certain things, um, even words and phrases and old sayings that we have that now many are calling verbal expressions of prejudices, and most people that use these sayings don't even know. They just say them because they've heard them. There's no prejudice intent. However, okay. So when we're looking at this subject, right? Freedom of speech and how free will and this goes together. All right. So I am going to use myself for an example because why not? So I am in a situation, not currently, but I'm in a situation, let's say hypothetically, and someone is shouting profanities at me, someone is calling me names, someone is slandering me, whatever, right? No matter how horrible what they say sounds, I'm going to defend and assert their right to say it. Why? Because we all have free will. So as it was given to me this morning, it's like, if you're a gamer, I'm not, but if you are, you sit down and you read the instructions of the game. You know what the goal is. You know what the rules are. Okay, that's us before we come into humanity, before we come into physical form as a human. We already know the rules here, and we know full well of the workings here of these lower frequencies. We know what we're coming into. We know the trappings, we know the pitfalls. We also know the potentials for joy and bliss and the experiences that we can't have outside of being human, okay? We know that before we come here. In the incarnating, the veil comes across the mind, let's say, and we forget that we have already been informed about all of this and have agreed, okay? So what we forget in coming in, the biggest thing we forget is that we have agreed, or we would not be here. We would not be here in human form if we had not agreed to that, okay? So I have a friend who probably will never see this video, and if he does, you'll know who you are. Posted something on social media, and I love this friend, someone that I went to school with, and I love him, and he has lived a life, and has been, just like all of us. I don't want to say tainted. They want me to say tainted. But okay, if I use their language, tainted by the experiences that we have had, all right? So we have been molded in a way. We have been influenced to see through a certain lens of perspective based on our life experience in this incarnation and others, all right, that the residual effects have come over. So he put out a post on social media about jobs, and everyone is hiring. If you don't have a job, it's because you don't want one. And because I have heard this so much from so many, in the form of wanting to criticize people for living off of the system, this kind of thing. Okay, so here's again where free will comes in. So if someone is saying nasty things to me, and what you have to understand is what someone is putting out, it only affects, so what someone is putting out in my direction, it only affects me if I claim it. So it only affects me if I allow it to, if I align to it. So if I align to the comments or statements being made about me, then I am allowing it to affect me, okay? Because those statements, whatever they are, being made about me, aren't about me at all. It's all about the one who's making the statements, right? So the thing is, because we have free will, we know that this is so. We know that a person is allowed and entitled and to be however they choose to be. They're entitled to be. Now, they can say anything they want. They can act any way they want. That is their inheritance as a child of God in human form. What they do, say, feel, how they act, only becomes my problem if I allow it to become my problem. That's what free will means, okay? They have free will to act, be, say, do what they're doing. I have free will to allow or not that to become my issue. Right. So we may not like what others do. We may not like what others say. I'll go there in a minute. Let me finish this. We may not like it, but we must understand, we must honor it. We must honor where they are, how they're being, how they're expressing. We must honor that. Okay. Now, I must go to this. If someone is attacking your physical body, you have every right to do whatever is necessary to stop that, okay? So even if, and I would say this, if someone attacks your physical body, you have already allowed it, or it couldn't have happened. You have already agreed to it, or it couldn't have happened. You just don't remember agreeing to it. You're just not cognizant of agreeing to it. You agreed to it at a soul level. Let's say it this way. You have agreed to it at a soul level. And that is why it comes into your awareness. It comes into your field of being, of happening, of experiencing, because you've already agreed to the experience. Because you have free will. No one can impose a will on you that is not yours. So free will is this great, vast, huge law, okay, that supersedes any human law. It is by definition what the human experience is about, okay? Also, knowing that we all have free will means when those experiences occur within our, what we call life, we accept and become accountable for welcoming it in, for asking for it, for allowing it, for whatever. And I'm going to give an example. So I put out a video saying that I had moved to Indiana for a time. Spirit told me I was moving to Indiana, so I did. I was staying with family in Indiana, and as I stated in that video, it didn't work out. Okay. So, and I'm just going to tell you what it was at the time, what it seemed like at the time, okay? I'm allergic to cigarette smoke. Whether a person believes it or not, it doesn't matter. I'm allergic to it. The allergy, I'm sure, is of the mind, because everything is. So I think because I developed such an adversity, such a repulsion to cigarette smoking, that my physical body has a reaction to it, okay? So not to say that I don't want to be around it, okay? So it now has at some point developed into an actual allergy where my body reacts to it. Okay. So, but to make it simple in human terms, I have an allergy to it. I have a reaction to it. There is a reaction within the body. So I was in Indiana living with family, and 2 of them were smokers. And I agreed to stay with them. They offered me to stay with them. I agreed to stay with them under the condition that there would be no smoking in the house, because I have the body has reaction and issues with that. That was agreed upon. It's my understanding. Okay. So I moved in and was staying there. But while I was there, they began smoking in the house. So my body told me, if you continue to do this, if you continue to be in this environment, bad things are coming. Like this is where you are. So I left. I said, I can't tell you what to do, what you can do in your own home. I can't dictate to you how you can behave in your own home. So I'm leaving. That's my choice. I'm not gonna stay and have that experience that I think I'm gonna have if I stay. So again, free will. Now, I'm not bitter about that, because I can see that the behavior of my family members, they're smoking cigarettes in the house, it wasn't personal to me, and it was at the same time. Now, why is that? Because their actions influenced a decision of mine. And because it influenced my decision, I came back and had the experience I'm having. Now, another way we can look at this is God gives all things. Okay, God gives all things, and our brother is our teacher. So God works because we are all Christ, and Christ works through every human form on this planet and other animals, wind, sky, okay? We have, again, dominion over these things, and what that means is these things serve us. Even if we can't understand how, they are in service to us on the level of spirit, on the level of soul. They are here directing, influencing our moments to guide us in a direction to an experience that the soul is requesting, if that makes sense. So I could be angry and bitter that it didn't work out, or I can see it as it is, which is their actions influenced a decision that I made, which put me on the path to have the experience I'm having. Okay? So I'm not angry about it. I'm not bitter about it. But that also, I'm not angry and bitter about it. But I'm going to tell you how it served me. So, I could have been angry at Spirit for telling me to move to Indiana in the first place, right? I could have been angry about that. But I was told to move to Indiana because there was an experience or 2 or 3 that needed to happen there. Not for me to create angst or ill feelings towards anyone, but because I asked for an experience and I was given it. I wanted to know what it was like to have that close relationship with your family. And I got that, and it was beautiful. For the time that I had it, it was beautiful. My moving to Indiana also allowed me and my husband now to understand the level of love we had for each other because I was moving 2 states away, you know? So that stress of not being able to see each other caused us to realize that we have a very deep love for each other. We were only friends before I moved to Indiana. We were only friends. We had never held hands. We had never kissed. We had never, nothing. So when I moved away, it allowed us the space to realize how important we were to each other, how sad we were to not be sharing life together. And then that precipitated more. So moving to Indiana taught me a lot and allowed me to see in a new way. And I think it probably affected the family in Indiana as well. And hopefully not in the negative, but I can't free will. I have no control over that. That is what they will take away from it, what they will take away from it. So what I also learned was when I came back and then we were in a position of what do we want to do, the way I chose to leave Indiana allowed me to disconnect from the wanting the family situation enough to say, what is it that I really want? Like in my surroundings, what is it that I really want to see when I look out my windows and that kind of thing? Okay, I like the mountains. I like forests and I like mountains. And you don't get that in Indiana. So you get forests, but you don't get mountains, okay? So I like the elevation. I like to be up in the mountains. So I looked at that and I was like, well, if I had to pick somewhere to live, I mean, I looked at a lot of places. If I had to choose a place to live, I want to live somewhere where there's mountains. I want to live somewhere where the view takes my breath away, you know? And that just wasn't Indiana. So there are so many benefits, so many blessings that came out of that. I cannot possibly be angry. I cannot possibly be agitated. I cannot possibly feel some kind of negative way about what went on there, okay? Now, free will states I can choose to feel bad about that. I can choose to be resentful. I can choose to use that in any way I deem appropriate. That is what free will is. But I get to choose. It's my choice. No one makes me anything. No one makes me do anything. Okay? So, free will and dominion. Dominion and free will go hand in hand. All of the things that we experience, everything that comes into our purview is here in service to us. We have the choice whether or not we see it that way, whether or not we understand it, whether or not we allow that truth to become a part of our daily activity. It is truth. It is truth. Because we agreed to it beforehand. We would not be a human on this planet if we had not agreed to this. Okay? So if someone says, well, I don't want X, Y, and Z to happen. You know, the first thing I would say to that is, well, then I would stop thinking about it. I would stop thinking about it, because the more you focus your attention in that direction, the more of that I don't want energy you're going to get. You're going to get that back. To be in a state of allowance and acceptance of whatever comes up, knowing from, and that is not a disempowered place, it is an empowered place, because I'm allowing and I'm accepting because I know I already have. I know I have already allowed, I have already accepted whatever it is, because it's happening. And that's the position of power. The position of power is knowing that nothing can come into my experience that I haven't already said yes to. I have, and so this is how the whole system works. As we were house hunting, even just in the last few days, since our house sold and all of the paperwork was finalized, because I didn't really I was serious, but not serious. It became imperative to find another property once the paperwork was all finalized and done. Even though we'd known for a couple of months that we were under contract, nothing was official until all the paperwork was final. So at that point, I got really serious about looking for properties. And as I stated in another video, once we put an offer in on a house, I'm getting now many more properties that would have, that seemed that they would have worked for us, that they would work for us. And that's really interesting to me, because the temptation is always there then to question the decision that's already been made. The temptation is there, like, did I do the right thing? Did I do the right thing? The question is there. The temptation to question it is there. And when that comes in, and it is so amazing how often that happens. I mean, it happens so often. And I remind myself, this is a temptation to believe a thing that is not true. It is a temptation to believe a thing that is not true. And somebody else will say, well, Missy, how do you know that? Well, because we put an offer in on a property that happened. That's how I know it's true, because it already happened. I have already agreed to the situation as it is because it's happening. So, and because I know that free will exists. And we can say, someone can say, but you can't control other people's actions. No, I can't control what someone else does. But at the level of soul, what I know is, I wouldn't be seeing it unless I agreed to some participation in it. It wouldn't come into my life unless I had agreed on some level for it to. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that my soul is giving me an opportunity through this person, through this situation, to realize myself more fully. Meaning to know myself as Christ, to know myself as the divine, to know myself as the one in power. Okay? When you think of power, if God does not come to mind, then I don't know what power is. Okay? So every situation that comes up is an opportunity for us to know ourselves in our power as the truth of who we are. We are the one who called it into being. We are the one who, and when I say called it into being, I don't mean we created it. I mean we called it into our being. So it's there. It's in the midst as a creation, okay? In order for that creation to come into my experience, I have called for it. All right? Someone else, another Christ, may have created it, but it's only going to come into my experience if I'm calling for it. Okay, the visual I'm getting to explain this is there is imagine a busy road, not a city street, but a busy road. There is a town where there is a festival, and in these towns, when there is a festival, we close down like the main street of the town. And there are many people, hundreds of people are walking this main street. Vendors have things sitting up, and they're walking around to see all the different vendors and the things that are there, and there's a loud sound, screeching tires. There is a sound of an impact, and then shortly after there is shouting and agitation and whatever. 3/4 of the crowd of people on Main Street tune into that and want to know what it is. Okay? And even some of them will flock to that scene. Others, maybe a handful, will hardly be aware that it has occurred. Like they heard something, but they were so involved in their joy and in their experience that it was like and then on about their day they went. Okay? Now, there are others who will be inspired to go to that scene to assist, to make sure that no one needs help. So we all have a different way of handling these things. The one who goes to see if they need help obviously has invited the situation in, they're participatory in it. Believe it or not, that's how it is. The ones who go, not so much. It's a creation in the field. They're aware that it's there, but they have not allowed it to become a part of their experience in that way. Okay? So this is how right. Well, so we come into human form and we forget the rule book. We forget how all of this works until we remember. And the remembering or the realization is who we are first. That must be the realization, who I am. When I open up the potential, the possibility to accept myself as the divine in form, that alone begins to open up the possibilities and the realizations for everything that is affected and informed by that one thing being I am divine. I am the divine in a physical form, in a human form. Once you know that, everything else begins to open up in a sense. Take on a new expression, a new life, a new way of being in that. If someone is cussing at me, right? I might just see them cussing at me and I might not have any kind of reaction to it. I might not feel anything about it. Sometimes I might laugh about it, which can be a bad thing, but, and that has happened. Where there was a really, really hard situation seemingly, and I would laugh, just started laughing about it because I thought it was funny. Which that's another subject. But so, and how I see things once I start to accept the truth of me, the real me, I see things differently. Okay, so this person is cussing at me, and now I see this person cussing at me, and I'm like, boy, they're really upset. But I realize it has nothing to do with me. It's not personal anymore. It has nothing to do with me. Now I can choose to make it personal. I can choose to allow it to influence me. But that's what free will is. I have the choice. Do I want to play in that game? Do I just want to stay over here and watch them throw their fit? This is just an example of how to look at things. So once you get to the point that you have accepted yourself as the divine and human form, you can also then get to the point that everything that I see, everything that is around me is here for me. It's here for me. It's for me. What do I want to do with it? It's for me. That chair, it's here for me. How blessed I am because that chair is here for me. See? So, or, is it in great shape? It is. I think so. It could be made new. It could be sanded down and restained and all these things. But I don't need it to be done for me, at this point. But it's here for me. I can choose to see it as a chair that needs work, or I can choose to see it as the wonderful thing that I get to sit on, right? It's just the way that you begin to see the world in a new way once you have accepted the truth of who you are. Now, that doesn't mean that I have, I still slip up. My son is my biggest trigger. My son. My 11-year-old son is my biggest trigger. So, and I understand why that is. I understand it. It doesn't stop me from getting frustrated about the situation or frustrated about whatever's occurring. I still get frustrated about it, I suppose the day that I no longer get frustrated about it, the situation will no longer be the situation. Okay? So I can say, my son is my biggest trigger. My son is the mirror. My son is my brother who holds the mirror up for me. My son is my teacher, for sure. My son is my teacher. Okay? And I can appreciate that he is my teacher and still be frustrated. So it is how we look at the world. And if you're a parent, and that's think about that. Think about, as a parent, how you look at your child, even when your child is doing whatever they're doing and you're feeling the frustration or the agitation, right? This is still your child. So if you can still find the love you have for your child, even in those moments, if you can still know that you have that love for them, that is the same thing that once you realize yourself, you can have that for everyone and everything. it's just easier with our own children that we have given birth to, and you know, there's that really deep connection of love. So it's easier with them. But that is how we, once we are accepting of ourselves in our truth, that is how we can interact and express through everything that comes. Okay? So let me pause here for a minute and see if I have left anything out. Okay. Back to my friend who made the social media post. So he had some statements in there that were red flags to me, which were because of certain people that are not working and collecting money from the system, he is forced to go back to work, to come out of retirement and go back to work. Okay. Well, through this talk already to this point, I hope that anyone who sees this can understand that no one forces us to do anything, because we are Christ. You are Christ. No one forces you to do anything. No one can influence you that you have not given allowance or permission to, okay? So I'm not sure what he's talking about. Something about bills still need to be paid, da 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 da. Okay. So if I'm in that situation where I'm not sure the situation, but let's say that I have invested money somewhere in a pension plan or a retirement plan, and okay, let's say that. So I have given authority to someone else to handle my funds, essentially, okay? And if they invest my funds in a way that causes me to lose my funds, if I am blaming that person for losing my funds, okay, that's where this disconnect is, because I've given them the authority to invest those funds in whatever way they believe is appropriate. I have given them that permission. So how can I be angry at that person for investing my funds? Oh, because they're supposed to be the expert. Okay. All right. So you see how we can justify and we can validate blaming. When we blame someone else, we become the victim. There are no victims here. There are Christs. There are Christs in human form. Christ is not a victim. Christ cannot be a victim. But the self-identity can claim that, can claim victimhood, but it's not Christ doing it. So, in other words, again, you're still choosing not to stand in your power. You're still choosing. You're choosing. Another way you could look at it would be, I've given this person authority over my funds to invest because I believe that they are more educated about that than I am. That's fine, because for me, that would be true for sure. Okay. But understanding that if you lose your funds, I'd be upset. I'd be upset about it too. But I'm not going to blame the one that I gave authority to invest that. I would probably be blaming myself for making that choice. Okay, that's where I would be. I'd be blaming myself for making the choice to give that authority, firstly. Then my forgiveness practice would have to be not blaming myself, looking at it and saying, okay, well, this happened because you obviously needed something out of it. In other words, you called it into being, you brought it into your awareness, you brought it into your experience. What's here that you can benefit by? Because that's the truth of the world that we're in. There is something in it that benefits me, even if I don't understand it. And then it becomes my job, because this happens to be my life experience. It is my job to understand how everything benefits me. Even the stuff that seems bad, it's here for me. So there are a lot of things in life that we can choose to be bitter about. There are a lot of things in the life experience that we can choose to resent. But all that does is keeps us small. All that does is disempowers us. I stand in my power. I've made the choices that I've made, and the choices that I've made have brought to me the experiences that were for my good, for my growth into acceptance of myself as the divine in human form. If this makes sense. I feel like I'm going to end on that note. And my friend, if you see this, I love you. I love you. In peace and love. May you be blessed.